All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai, back in here with another quick, of the Lord's will as always, an edifying lesson. Yahweh Rataza, Yahweh willing. For today's lesson, I just want to go through a quick couple excerpts, in this book I have here. It's called Trillion Dollar Conspiracy by Jim Marrs. And, as following some of the things that's going on in the news in regards to this Mpox thing, and I kind of just want to do a little digging into drugs and just doing a little bit of research into a lot of these companies that are producing a lot of these how do you call these things? For the sake of the lesson, I want to call them uh, the jump shots, right? But you brothers know, a few sisters who listen know what I'm talking about. What was pushed on the world a couple years ago, that jump shot, right? Leave it at that, right? So what I want to do, I want to read a couple excerpts from this book here. And as always, I pray and sincerely hope that the lesson truly and definitely is edifying. I don't want to make it too long, but I just thought there was some juicy information about companies in here in regards to jump shot, in regards to a lot of the wicked practices that a lot of these companies do, that Esau does, right? So I want to do a little exposing, so to speak. And, hopefully this would be, I guess, a comfort to also to your ears as well. So let me just start off with this scripture here. Just bear with me. Okay. It says Habakkuk 2 verse 4, and it says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith, right? So, we're in a situation, in a society, in a captivity where, people are understanding, well, you brothers and few sisters who listen, that are in the know, you understand you're in a captivity where, essentially everything is defiled by what Esau does. And one of the things that is defiled here is the drugs, is the so-called medicine that he calls. So so this character Esau is not upright. The things that he does, it essentially it's all corrupt, right? And one of the things I want to touch on is the a bit of the drugs here, and even the practices and the ethics in these different companies as well. It's not ethical, it's not moral, there's no fear of the Lord behind this individual. He just kind of does what he wants. He's a lawless beast, right? So okay, so this is page 133, right? And it says drugs are a business. Only 5 biopharmaceutical companies, Novartis, GSK, MedImmune, and Australian firm CSL, Sanofi, Pasteur, have been awarded massive contracts by the U.S. Department of Health Human Services to develop and produce more than 195 million doses of the swine flu jump shot at that time, right? So you have these different companies. So here it lists Pfizer. It says Merck is one company, Johnson and Johnson. They were heavy into that CVID jump shot as well. They were also in there. Another company it has here is Bristol Myers Squibb, AstraZeneca. So a lot of these names will probably sound very familiar, right? So I just wanted to draw on a couple quick points as well. So here on page 135, it says most pharmaceutical companies, these are quotes, by the way. So this is a quote by a doctor, a professor of medicine at the University of California. And he says the most pharmaceutical companies devote large amounts of money to prevent, control, and cure diseases, he added. When their profits don't match corporate expectations, they invent new diseases to be cured by existing drugs. It says countless examples of disease mongering and driven by the pharmaceutical industry's drive to sell drugs, he wrote. It says conditions such as female sexual dysfunction syndrome, premenstrual dysmorphic disorder, toenail fungus, baldness, and social anxiety disorder, aka shyness, are a few places where the medical community has stepped in, thereby turning normal or mild conditions into diseases for which the medication is the treatment. So essentially, what Esau is doing is taking very, very simple conditions that a person might be. So, say for example, somebody is traditionally known as like a, I guess today they will say like an introvert, like somebody that doesn't, I guess, like to be around people, or sometimes I might get a little bit nervous, interacting and talking with people. They would take a mild situation like that, and instead of actually trying to rehabilitate, so trying to put them in an environment where they can actually learn the skills to adapt. So put them in a comfortable, put them in a, I guess you could say like an uncomfortable situation where they're actually forced to adapt, essentially, right? Kind of like how you might a person who may not know how to swim, they're put into the deep end where they're it's kind of like it kind of kicks in a fight or flight type of mode in their body to be able to, like, okay, let me try and adapt to this situation, right? But instead of him doing that, what he will do is capitalize on that opportunity to actually sell you more drugs, because it convinces these people in the minds that they're sick, right? So so going back to the precept, the soul that is up is in him, it's not upright, right? um it says further on, it says, where was I? Ironically, though Big Farm invents new diseases, they rarely invent a new drug. Surprisingly, most of the new important drugs brought to market in recent years were based on taxpayer-funded research at universities, small biotechnology companies, and the National Institute of Health (NIH). It says, in fact, most supposedly new drugs are merely a variation of older drugs. So essentially, this guy's a mad scientist when you really think about it. I want to jump to verse 16, and it says, "Thou art shamed, thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The Lord of the cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned to thee. Shameful spewing shall be on thy glory." Right. So instead of you have situations now where people are coming out and realizing that the medical field that people held in a very high regard is now actually spewing out, and people are realizing that a lot of, not just the drugs that they're taking, they're realizing even the foods as well that they're taking, it's actually bringing a detrimental effect to their body. Everyday things that you might use, for example, as like, especially like, for example, these different cheap oils that people use to fry different foods, like your vegetable oil, palm oil, all these different cheap alternatives. This is what Esau essentially is using and pushing upon the people. And when people use these things, they're realizing they get a plethora of different diseases and different sicknesses, right? um where was I? Okay, it says, if a manufacturer and I change one molecule to get another 20 years of patent rights and convince physicians to prescribe um, consumers to demand the next form of Prilosec or weekly Prozac instead of daily Prozac, just as my patent expires, then why would I be spending money on a lot less certain endeavor, which is looking for brand new drugs, right? So essentially, they're taking something that is they're not changing too much about it, but they might change like one little thing, and then as the patent expires, okay, now it's considered brand new, so now they can use that particular drug to actually make money. And it's not about healing, it's about actually trying to increase profit margins, trying to acquire more business and more money, essentially. Like it says in Timothy's, the love of money is the root of all evil, not the physical money itself, right? So let's get I believe it's 22. Let me see. Sirach 19, verse 22, and it says, the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, neither at any time the counsel of sinners prudence. Right? So the reason why knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom is because this individual here has no fear of the Lord. Right? Let's jump across to so before I read that, hold on. So essentially it's more about marketing. That's one thing that Esau is very good at. They push, like when you look at a lot of these commercials, for example, it seems like it's all nice and cool, and it's a man might be running through the fields, and he might be walking with his wife, and the wind is whistling through his hair, and everything seems all magical. But when you really take into account and you listen to the actual ad itself, it's just all listing off a plethora of different complications. But then when you look at the ad itself and the imagery, it seems all good. He's very, very deceptive that way. That's why the scriptures say that the serpent was more subtle than any beast in the field, right? It looks very appetizing, it looks very good, but when you really you bite into what he's selling you, it's really, really dangerous for you. It causes us, like it says in Ezra, roughly, let me get that actually before I mess it up. Okay, this is Second Ezra 14, verse 17, and it says, look how much, excuse me, the world shall be weaker through age, so much more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. And this is the world that we're living in. You don't have people, essentially, especially you Israelites, a lot of you people don't live as long. One, because you don't eat the proper foods that you need to eat, and then you're very miseducated because you strongly depend on this man and his so-called wisdom, and it's not wisdom at all because it's wickedness, right? You depend on a lot of his things. Like it also says in Isaiah, why spend money for which is not bread, and your labor that satisfy not? So buying all these different drugs, it's not actually alleviating you. It's causing you more harm than good, right? But first and foremost, let me say that, as a matter of fact, let me get this. Okay, this is John 15, verse 3, and it says, Yahweh Shai speaking, you are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you, right? So what really makes us clean, first and foremost, is spiritual. So it starts really by the word. That's really what cleanses us, right? It's not, yes, I'm not knocking the benefits. I'm going to actually get that. But most importantly, I'm stressing the importance of what really cleans us and keeps us holy, keeps us separate, keeps us, sanctified, is really through, this word, right? It's not, these drugs that, our people like to, cling onto. But let me go back to Sirach, because there is an element, and it's just a quick not excerpt, I should say. There is a quick testimony I wanted to share, actually, because recently I had gone to one of these so-called doctors, and he asked me a plethora of different questions, and one of the things that really stood out to me was when he said um, I should use these oils, like not olive oil. He did say olive oil, but he said safflower oil. So oils like vegetable oil, and what was the other one? I believe it was safflower and some kind of other oil. It's a very cheap oil, right? That causes a lot of like inflammation and causes a lot of sickness in the body, right? And when a lot of our people use these oils to fry, they essentially it makes them more obese, right? And that was one of the things that really stuck out to me, and I just thought it was very interesting because in that essentially that in that moment, they had no essential knowledge of um, using whether it's the herbs or whether it's different foods to actually alleviate your current sickness, right? There's no knowledge in regards to that, like whether their knowledge was you go to the store and okay, go to the pharmacy and you pick this up, right? That's what they know, right? When it comes to actual herbs that you can use and incorporate, or even different lifestyle changes too, they don't, like Apostle Bar recently has been talking about the importance of walking, right? Scriptures say that the bodily exercise it profits little, but it profits, right? So that was one of the things that was kind of turned me off about going there, right? Anyways, not to ramble about myself, I'm just using that as an example. Sirach 38 verse 1, and it says, honor a physician with the honor due unto him for the uses which he may have of him, for the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai hath created him, right? And our physician really, when you think about it as well, is also Yahushai. And really that he plays that role of actually healing us, through this word. Like for example, there's an account in Mark where the woman, I believe it was her child. Um, let me get it. Just bear with me on this. Mark 5 and 25, and it says, and a certain woman which had issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things and many physicians, and spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. But when she heard of Yahushai, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague. And Yahushai, immediately knowing in himself that the virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, who touched my clothes? Verse 31, it says, and his disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee. So people kind of pushing him back and forth. And sayest thou, who touched me? And looked around, and to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing that what was done in her, she came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. See, Yahushua had that, that spiritual power, to be able to heal, right? And what makes us heal, we're literally like that woman touching, Yahushua's garment, by essentially taking on, this word, and learning of Yahushua, and cleansing our ways, right? We put off, a lot of the old habits, especially the habits of this world and all this kind of stuff in it, because all that stuff is essentially, it's not only just draining, but it causes death. The wages of sin is death, right? It says, verse 34, and he said unto her, Yahushua speaking, daughter, thy faith had made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague, right? So a lot of the things that, I used to plague us, especially in the world, because, our minds are being constantly renewed, our minds are being constantly transformed, those things don't plague us anymore, right? So that's where the really and truly the healing really starts. um, but it also extends also into, like I was reading in Sirach in regards to the herbs. Like so what I want to do, I want to finish reading that. Verse 2, it says, for the most high cometh healing, for of the most high, cometh healing, and he shall receive honor of the king. The skill of physician shall lift up his head, and the sight of great man he shall be in admiration. Verse 4, and here's the point: the Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them. So the Lord created these different medicines, and whether it's different flowers, different leaves, even down to your vegetables. Like for me, for recently, I've been juicing a lot of like beets, cucumber, ginger, or I might get different loose leaf teas and use it and make it into like an iced tea, right? Because it's summertime, but to also essentially get the nutrients out. So I would steep it maybe for about an hour, not an hour, I should say. Steep it for maybe like a few minutes, maybe about 15-20 minutes maybe, and let it cool. And then when it's cooled down, then I put it in the fridge or I freeze it, and then I use it and drink it as an iced tea. And I make sure it has all these different properties. Like for example, you have ginger, you might have, I might put some cinnamon. I got some soursop leaves. You can use that to actually perform its essential perform its duty in the body. Like for the beets, it's very, very good for your blood. The cinnamon, all these different ingredients. The Lord created these things to actually help your body, right? So I guess I'll just leave it there. I didn't want to make the lesson too long. I wanted to bring out a little bit more on Pfizer, but I guess I could just use that and I'll make it into another lesson. But what I'll do, let me just share this picture before I close. I thought this was very interesting. So here's a picture from the book. I think I'll make it as the thumbnail that is in the book here. So here it gives a list of different drugs that they produce, that these companies produce, right? And it shows you how much it costs, and then it also shows you the markup, how much they sell it for, as to the consumer. And then it shows you on the far right here, you see the percentage of the markup. So these people, it's mostly about business. It's not about actually healing. It's business, it's making money, and it's marketing, and it's keeping you people sick. Because once they keep you sick, it's you're just a patient that continues to return, right? And that's one thing Esau doesn't like. He doesn't like you to essentially, be essentially, when you really think about it, far, like spiritually, he doesn't want you to be dependent on the Lord when you really think of it. And that's our people's problem, right? So anyways, I'll leave it there. But Lord's will, as always, this lesson was edifying. To give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.